Ladies and gentlemen, good afternoon from Dubai. In the last couple of years, tourism has become an important sector that has had a great impact on the development of country economics. The main benefits of tourism are income creation and generation of jobs. For many places, tourism is the most important source of welfare. So it is convenient for countries to respond to this most important to this importance provisionally by developing the necessary infrastructure and increasing their abilities to supply the needs of tourists. Tourism impacts environments and people on social cultural aspect. It impacts the lifestyles and cultures of both residents and visitors. You have a very high level of demand for experienced people accompanied by super active field. And many years ago, it was considered that you don't that anybody could join this industry and that you don't need formal training or development or anything. But it is actually a highly regulated industry. And if you want to break into this industry and you back it up with studying tourism as well, what's there to lose? With that in mind, at World Tourism Forum Institute, we have decided to expand our product portfolio and expand learning and development for the industry by the industry. And for this purpose, we are launching a number of initiatives towards developing and strengthening, training and also some special training in regard to cross-border tourism, between destinations. For this purpose, I want to today welcome my guest, Dr. Wolfgang, Professor Dr. Wolfgang Georg Arlt. He is the CEO of Coterie China Outbound Tourism Research Institute, with whom we are in the process of doing a major tie-up to bring this vision of ours to the foreground. Welcome.
Thank you very much for having me, Samara.
So I want to first start off with you, because it's not every day that on my platform I have a professor. So I really want, so you obviously have dedicated your life to tourism. So tell me, how did it start? Why did you get into tourism?
Well, it's a long time ago. So in 1975, I had to decide what to study. And at that time, China was closed. Chairman Mao was still alive. It was an enigma. So I was curious about this. So I started sinology, China science. And after that, almost the only thing you could do was working in tourism. So I started my own tour operator. And actually, until the end of the 1990s, I've been a tour operator, mostly bringing Chinese delegations, at that time, obviously business delegations, to Europe, especially to Germany. And then with the new millennium coming up, so I decided to have a change. And so since 2002 until a few months ago, I was teaching and researching at a university in Germany in international tourism management. And at the same time, since 2004, because I had all the experience working with China, I started the Coterie, the China Outbound Tourism Research Institute, which at that time, people were laughing at me and they were saying, "Ha, you're crazy. You always talk about China. China, yeah, we will travel to China, of course, but then China can be a source market. That is impossible. The Chinese people are poor. They don't have the money to travel." Well, this has changed, obviously. And now, since already 2012, China is the biggest outbound tourism source market. And even in 2020, there were more than 2 million Chinese people traveling, much less than before, but still it is the biggest market. And certainly once we get out of the Corona crisis, it will certainly be again by far the biggest international tourism source market.
Great. So you practically have come from the business of tourism into the academic side of tourism. So you've crossed over, which is really quite heartening, because you understand the business of tourism and now you're into the business of teaching tourism. China, you've explained to me that how you got into tourism and how the Chinese tourism happened for you. So you have been working for decades for the Chinese outbound tourism market. Can you tell me a bit about how you came to this topic and what is your institute doing?
Well, it's in the 1980s, it's the very beginning, actually, I brought Europeans to China, but after the 1990s, when China economically started to grow, it became much more interesting to have Chinese people coming towards us. And and after 1997, the Chinese government opened also the gates for leisure tourism. So, and it became very much a passion of the Chinese to travel and see the world with their own eyes. And obviously, the Chinese come from a very different cultural background, and they have simply different demands and expectations. And also now, when we talk about the current situation, uh, there are so many. So 2019, we had 170 million border crossings. So obviously, they're not all the same people. So this is, I think, the first thing to understand for the Chinese market. There is not the Chinese outbound tourist, because obviously a 35-year-old stockbroker in Shanghai who studied in America for 5 years is very different from a 55-year-old granny who from Gansu province of the countryside who for the first time in her life is leaving China. So this is certainly the interesting thing, and you can see that over the last 20 years, the development has been huge, and the changes have been huge. And now, in the times of the virus and in the post-virus times, again, the Chinese demand structure is changing a lot.
Right. And I mean, when I'm looking at some of the dates that you shared, that you started studying sinology in 1975, nobody would even consider China as a tourism a destination or to attract tourists from that market. So you were really, really ahead of the time at that time, ahead of the curve, as we so to speak. As we all know that at the moment the Chinese outbound tourism is down to almost zero. When do you see the Chinese coming back? Because we are living through very unprecedented crisis, which China has a huge part of it. And tell us, what is your impression?
Yes, obviously, this is the $1 million question everybody is asking. What we can see is that uh, all the surveys are showing. So recently there was a survey by TCI Research and the European Travel Commission showing again that 2/3 or almost 70% of the Chinese who have been traveling internationally before are really eager to travel again. And they say as soon as the visa are back and the air connections are back and it can be considered relatively safe to travel, they will travel abroad again. So this is really something for the uh, upper end of the Chinese society. This is a very important lifestyle element, is international travel. So, and don't forget, when we talk about the Chinese outbound tourists, we talk about the top 10% of the society. Only the top 10 or maybe 11% of the society of the Chinese have a passport. So, enough money to travel internationally. That's still 150 million people. That's
Wow.
still a huge market, but it is not the majority of the Chinese. And for them, this has become in the last 15 years or so really a very important thing. Also a uh, show of self-respect, but also gaining respect from other people to show, yes, I can afford that and I have experience. If we talk about New York City or Sydney or Tokyo or Milano, I can share my experiences. I know my way around in the world. And especially as more and more Chinese also pick up special interests, hobbies. So they are also very interested in doing this hobbies. If this is golf or photography or music or whatever, when they're traveling. So this is really clearly a market nobody can afford to ignore.
I think the world is hurting right now because the Chinese tourist is grounded for sure. You know,
Yes, and so therefore,
yeah.
so to answer your question, so what we can see is that, of course, the Chinese government is very careful not to bring back the virus to China. They have been successfully getting almost rid of it. And now, whenever there's a small outbreak, they do very strongly react to that and put people under curfew. Uh, but at the same time, as I said, the demand from the people is very strong. So therefore, I think when even the Chinese government cannot do what they want, even they will have to listen to what the people are demanding, and therefore I think uh, by May or so we will see the first bubbles that you have people flying with an aircraft directly from virus-free China to a virus-free place like we're working, for instance, with Papua New Guinea. There is no virus in Papua New Guinea. So if you have an aircraft going directly from Shanghai to Port Moresby and people can enjoy themselves there, then this will be possible. Or Israel is very far ahead in vaccination. So there will be probably some bubble that Chinese people go to Israel. For the wider destinations, it might be, who knows, June, July before this is possible. The key element will be when the Chinese government stops asking that you have to go back into quarantine when you come back to China. And when it is enough that you have a negative test, then this will be a big wave. You can see that at the moment, the only place that mainland Chinese can travel to without having to go into quarantine is Macau, special administrative region. And we had in the last quarter of 2020, we had 1.7 million Chinese going only to Macau because you can go there. There are no cases in Macau, and so you can go back to China without having to go into quarantine. So this will be moving forward. And fortunately, the area around China, especially like, for instance, Vietnam or Laos or Cambodia, they have very few cases as well. So it will be, of course, we all this depending that there's no nasty surprises of that the virus mutates again or something like that. But so under a, let's say, a medium scenario, I think that from May through the summer, the Chinese will come, and if they come, they will come in huge quantities because there's what is called revenge consumption. So a lot of Chinese have not canceled their trips, they have postponed their trips. And so the majority of them are saying, once I can do this trip, I will do it again. And don't forget, not all Chinese are traveling for leisure. There's a lot of business travel. Not, you cannot do everything by Zoom. So if you want, if I don't know, you have invested in a company, let's say in Dubai, and you want to have a new general manager there employed, you want to meet that person. You don't want just have a Zoom call before you make such a decision. So papers have to be signed. So there's also a lot of business travel. There's a lot of VFR, visiting friends and relatives. Your daughter is studying in Sydney, so you want to visit her. So as soon as it's possible, the parents will travel to see their daughter and so on.
That's a very important point that you are making, because it's Chinese travelers are not just tourists. It's also business travel and friends and families visiting and travel and a whole gambit of other reasons. So I remember having this discussion with you a few weeks ago, and you had mentioned a very important statistic to me at that time, that how ready is the Chinese, that there was apparently a survey you referred to, that China, how ready are the Chinese travelers to travel than as compared to maybe the European or the Americans?
Yes, so the Chinese in all the surveys where different nationalities have been asked, the Chinese are the most willing, or I don't know, maybe you can say the bravest, to say, okay, I will travel, and I'm I'm not afraid to travel. So when this is 70 for for China, the readings are 40 for USA and 35 for Europe. So there is a much more fear. For instance, there was a survey for Germany that most Germans are afraid to go into an aircraft now because they're afraid there might be some problems there. Whereas the Chinese already since May, they have been flying in aircraft domestically all the time and nothing happened. So there is already, as the domestic tourism in China started already more than half a year ago, and even so at the moment for the Chinese New Year, they had some restrictions, but still 200 million people are traveling, not 800 million like before, but only 200, but still a lot of people traveling. And last October, we had more than 600 million people traveling in 1 week. So they have already the experience again of normal traveling, if only domestically. Whereas, for instance, we are in Europe, so we are still in the middle of this panic mode that everybody I meet might be dangerous for me. And and if you sit in an aircraft on a long distance flight, well, they will give you something to eat, so you will have to take off your mask to eat your food. And so this is something, so there's much less concern for the majority. Of course, not, there's also some Chinese who are very careful and very concerned and say, I will stay in China. I don't trust the foreign hygiene regimes, but for the majority, it's clear that they say, okay, I want to see the world and I want to learn new things and pursue my special interest or visit my family. So this is clearly, there is the Chinese market is very promising. And also, let me add one more thing is, most Chinese are not traveling long distance for relaxation, for holiday. They travel to do things, to learn things, to experience things, to try things out, which means on the one hand, they spend more money because they're not just lying on the beach the whole day. And also, they are less sun seekers or beach goers. So if you offer the right products, and this is what you mentioned at the beginning, you need training and you need experience for that. And we have a program called Advantage Tourism, which is helping exactly for people to learn that. Yeah. You can have Chinese tourists coming at different times of the year and to different parts of your destination, because they're not coming only in the summer for the beach. But of course, you have to give them a reason why they should come in the other times, other places.
So will the Chinese outbound tourism go back to normal as before?
Hopefully not.
Really?
Because normal in many cases meant over tourism.
Okay.
So there are a lot of stories. Ask the people in Venice or in Dubrovnik or on Santorini or in Barcelona what they think about Chinese tourists, and they will say, wow, so there are too many of them. So this idea of bus loads of Chinese people jumping out of the bus, taking photos, jumping back in, only staying in cheap hotels, eating cheap, bad Chinese food. So this is the idea, which already was in 2019 only part of the story, and there have already been more and more individual travelers. But so we don't want to go back to that. We don't want to go back to over tourism. We don't want to go back to Chinese tourists not caring about the environment, famously breaking off corals, because if you offer them more quality, more products like they want, they feel more welcome.
Okay.
They will feel part of the family, and then they will behave better, and they will recommend your place to their peers.
So you are saying that Chinese tourists, post-COVID Chinese tourists will be more discerning now, will be much more aware,
yes.
Much more demanding to some degree as well of their preferences. So their preferences will change, so.
Yes, so this is exactly right. So this is something, again, we're not talking about black and white. It's not the Chinese tourist, but there's a growing proportion, and these are normally the people with more money, a growing proportion of people who are not just doing 7 countries in 8 days, but who are more interested to learn, to have closer contact with the local culture. Every year, people are more likely to speak English, and you have electronic gadgets. You can speak in Chinese, and it will talk to you in Spanish or English, whatever. So the language problem is getting smaller, so you can communicate with local people more easily. So this is a bigger market. But yes, at the same time, of course, the Chinese are saying, hey, we know we are an important market. You should take some efforts to make us happy. And this is, we're saying in our training, old marketing sentence, the worm has to be tasty to the fish, not the fisherman. So maybe you prefer a falafel, but if you put a falafel on the hook of your angle, no fish will come. If you put a worm there, you probably don't want to eat that, but the fish wants to eat it. So, and this is a point that also, you said at the beginning, maybe some decades ago, everybody could go into tourism and just say, okay, I offer my guests what I like, and then they will also be happy too. But this only works within your own culture. So if you have, so I don't like karaoke, I have to admit, but most Chinese people like karaoke. So if you have Chinese people in your hotel, you better have a karaoke room they can rent, you even earn money from that, and they're happy they have to do something in the evening. You're not forced to do it yourself. It is for the customer, not for you. And
so
there are many
catering to their needs and desires.
Yes, but for that, of course, you have to know what they want, and you have to understand that younger people are more likely that their self-image is, I'm a global person, I know my way around. So they don't want to be told, oh, you're a Chinese, I know number 4 is bad luck in China. Don't worry, I won't give you a room with a number 4. They will say, guy, I have a PhD from Harvard. Who do you think you're talking to?
Right.
So they will be offended by that. Maybe by some countryside people, first time out of China, they will be happy if there's no number 4 in their room number. So this is something you have to differentiate between the different customer groups, and you have to know. For instance, there are 40 million kids in China learning how to play the piano. So you have 40 million potential customers that their parents come with them to a music conservatorium, to some training classes where they can learn how to play the piano in European style in all the places which are connected to music. Wow. So these are the things you just need to know. There's food. There's a lot of foodies now. It's very fashionable to be an expert in international food. So, but you have to offer this to the people, and at the same time, there are still Chinese travelers who say, no, I rather want to eat Chinese food. Maybe my stomach will not accept other food. So you have to understand clearly your product is good for which kind of customers, and do this accordingly.
So when and how should destinations prepare?
Well, clear answer, now, because now there are no Chinese tourists around, but they will come back, and they will come back in huge numbers. But they had a year now to listen to many stories and watch many videos to learn more about other destinations. So there will be more competition. Many of them are interested to go to new places, maybe also not to the very big cities anymore, but rather to places with less people. Nature is becoming more important. Traveling with your family is becoming more important. You have more and more older people, which means, let's say 55 plus, so retired people who have more time to travel and more interested in culture. So you have all this happening, and so therefore you have to prepare now for this, because they will. So now you can adapt your product based on learning. You can also digitalize. You have, like, for instance, mobile payment is a necessity. China is more or less a cashless society now, especially also again last year helped to move this forward. So if you don't accept Alipay or WeChat Pay, the Chinese will go somewhere else. So these are really requirements. And so, but also adapt your story, adapt your product, look at which kind of customers are the best for me. Am I rather a family destination? Can I offer health services for older people, or can I have adventure for younger groups of people interested in outdoor activities? Next year, we will have the Winter Olympics in Beijing. So all this topic of winter sport will become much more important for Chinese tourists. But again, they don't know how to ski. They live far away from mountains, far away from snow. So they will want to have fun in the snow, but again, differently from Europeans or Americans. So this is now is the time to look at your own product, what you can offer, what there's a demand, and then tell the Chinese, okay, when you start to travel again, we are the people who will give you the service you are expecting.
That's incredible, Professor, what you are sharing. The really, really, really fine nuances of how to deal with this market. So, which really brings me to the next questions. Now that I'm understanding the importance of this creating and launching this product even further of advantage tourism. Talk to us a little bit about this product and tell us, why it is critical to introduce this at this point.
Yes. So we saw, of course, that the way we have been helping companies had to change, and we are now at the moment where it's a lot about a restart the economy and restart tourism. So we developed this advantage tourism program together with some associates, also some technology partners for different knowledge aspects and data provision aspects and digitalization and so on. But basically, it is the point of saying there is a more sustainable way to develop Chinese outbound tourism, and we have the opportunity now that we had a break, and the virus made us to question many different things, especially also in tourism. So then we see, okay, the new normal has to be different from what it was before, and if we like it or not, we have more time on our hands for many people than we want, because there's not much business happening at the time. So we said, okay, so advantage tourism means that you base your service on quality, and quality, the Chinese consider quality, and for that you need knowledge. So we have an online training called China Tourism Training, which also we will hopefully develop together further, where we have a partner, the Hong Kong Polytechnic University School of Hotel and Tourism Management, so you get a real university certificate at the end of that training. So this is a basic for the knowledge, and then based on this, we are
the certification will happen from the Hong Kong Polytechnic.
Yes. So this is so we have developed this together with them, and you get a certificate of participation from Hong Kong Poly, which is the #1 tourism and hospitality faculty in Asia, number 3 or 4 in the rankings in the world. So it's one of the top places. Certainly everybody in China who knows anything about tourism knows this. So if you display this in your marketing materials, so people will also see, oh, these guys really have prepared to be China ready for that. And then based on this, so we are working, for instance, at the moment with the Spanish government with Tour España, so to develop areas which are not the beach and not Barcelona and not Madrid, and see, okay, what can be offered there. There are some areas like Andalusia, in the south of Spain, where you have already some people which took the initiative to offer China-specific products and services. But so to bring this together and to have this in a way where the locals are happier with the Chinese tourists, the staff working in the companies is happier, and of course the margin is better because you offer something where you're not competing like on a beach with anybody else in the world offering the same product, and also where, because the customers are more happy, they will recommend you, and this is another key element. So we have the problem now that everybody is looking for Chinese visitors, and social media marketing has become so cluttered, and there are so many voices saying, listen to me, that if you don't have $10 million, your voice will not be heard in all this noise. So therefore,
I think
and also the Chinese don't believe propaganda. They believe when their friends tell them, I've been there, or maybe you do a live selfie or a live streaming, you say, look, I'm here in Dubai, how wonderful it is here. I'm very happy here. You should also come here.
Word of mouth. Word of mouth.
Yes, word of mouth. And we call this one square. Word of mouse and word of mouse, computer mouse.
Okay.
Because a lot of this is virtual now. So, but this is something which is actually so better to invest the money in having a tourism industry which understands the market better and can offer better products than putting all this money into a big black hole, social media marketing, where you don't know what is the outcome. And so this is.
So I think just to recap a little bit, because this is very important for our listeners, what you have just now shared. Okay, so it needs to be, the program is aimed towards tourism boards or destinations or individuals who were already doing Chinese business but want to up the game, but also towards the ones who want to break into this market and want to try something different, because there is an opportunity. Post-COVID, we have to be razor sharp, focused on who we are targeting, so that we avoid over tourism, and we avoid all of the pitfalls of how we knew tourism before COVID. Okay, so these are individuals and organizations and tourism boards that who we are targeting.
Yes, so that's absolutely correct, your summary. And of course, it can be done, well, for an individual, it might be just the online training, and then they move by themselves. For bigger organizations or for tourism organizations, government organizations, it might be that we move with them for 2 years and help them not only to develop the strategy, but also implementing it in a practical way and finding distribution channels and stuff. So these are modules which can, and the different customers can decide which modules they are using, and if how far we can help them. But yes, so you're right. This can be for people who are have not entered the market with China yet, or maybe thought, oh, I hear some bad stories, I don't want to touch this. So that there's now a better chance from the way the Chinese demand has developed, and also from the tools we, for instance, can offer. But of course, it's also for many places where they had experiences with the Chinese, which often were, you had a huge number of arrivals, but they stayed for a short time. They spent very little money. They annoyed the other visitors you had, so that people were saying, okay, well, it's nice for the press release from the tourism ministry, 60% increase, hooray. But from the business point of view and from a society point of view, it was a mixed experience. And we're saying this doesn't have to be like that. This is not automatically Chinese tourists are like that. It just, you need the right kind of customers.
Right. And you at the end of all of this training, I think it's important to remember that you get certified from the number one tourism school, one of the top three at least from Hong Kong Polytechnic. So this is huge. My audience, I want to say that to you that that's a huge certification to have there. It's also a badge of approval that
Yes.
in a way by the Chinese tourists that this organization is properly certified, and they understand, they have taken the time to understand our story, to understand our needs, you know. Um, uh, so one of the things I believe, Professor, that you could also do is that for the most able-minded organizations and all of that, that we can actually create a process of lead generation, of introducing them to tour operators in China as well.
Yes, of course. That is part, that's what I said. So this is, so the first steps are to understand, to apply this for product development, product adaptation. But then the further steps, of course, we are happy to help with that. Also is then finding distribution channels.
So
Operators,
once you've done all that training and you've done all of that certification, then where do you go? How do you market yourself? So it's a process. So that is why, you know, in some cases, a consultancy may run over 5, 6 months, a year, 2 years, 3 years, depending on the nature of who we are engaging with. So I think that that's a very, very important point. So that, let me dovetail to my next question. When will advantage tourism start?
Well, we have already started. So we, as I said, we are working for Spain at the moment, and we have a few other organizations in the pipeline where we, in the next couple of weeks, we think we will have some more contracts signed. But of course, we are very happy to offer this to everybody interested. And yeah, so I think it is, well, now it is February 2021. So, and we have the next 4 or 5, maybe 6 months before the big wave of Chinese tourists starts again. So this is a time to use. And I think there's no time to lose, because once global tourism has started again, everybody will be so busy with adapting to the new situation, and then you will think, oh, I wasted my time with Netflix when I should have done that. So it has started already, and it is something which is certainly worthwhile to look at, because the Chinese market will not go away, and it will be important. So we are thinking that probably in 5 years or 6 years, 20% of all international travel will be Chinese. At the moment, it's about 11% in 2019. It was about 1 out of 9 international tourists was a Chinese. You can clearly see that will move up to something like 1 out of 5 international travelers will be a Chinese. And on top of that, they spend more money. And on top of that, you can use them to fill up low season and areas which are not so touristically developed if you offer them the right products.
That's an incredible statistic. Currently, 1 out of 9 is Chinese tourists, and you are saying in 5 years it'll move to 1 in 5. You know, so no time to lose here, viewers, no time to lose at all. But what do you say to the skeptics? There are some who probably are listening to you right now who will say, why China is just too far a market for us, you know, and why we don't promote our domestic tourism. That's what it is all about, staycations right now, because COVID has taught us to be enjoying tourism more near to home, and also regional tourism. What's your answer to that?
Good point. That's a good point. I mean, of course, there are much more domestic tourists also in China than there are outbound tourists. It is much more expensive to travel outbound. And if you have a big domestic market, wonderful. So if you are in the United States or bigger European countries like Germany, wonderful. Of course, you should also take care of your domestic market. But there are many destinations depending on tourism. Let's say the Maldives. How many domestic tourists can you find in the Maldives? There aren't any. So you need people coming from abroad. And also for domestic tourism, 2 points. One point is few people stay in a five-star hotel or five-star resort in their own country.
Wow.
So the luxury element is mostly international tourism, not domestic tourism. So, and also in international tourism, you can sell things which locally people think is normal. So I'm living in the north of Germany. In June, we have 17 hours sunshine, daylight. For somebody from Singapore or from Guangzhou, this is wow. At 10 p.m., you can still read a newspaper without any artificial light, or you can play golf at 10 p.m. in daylight. This is something which is very impressive for people from southern places. For the local people, they think, yeah, that's our climate, that's our seasons. Is what's so special about it? Certainly, I don't spend money on that. So this is something where another point is that many times you have resources which are not resources in the eye of the local because they're used to that. So beautiful nature. So if I go to a place like, let's say, Sri Lanka, you say, wow, everything is green and everything is so, nature is so well developed, it's so beautiful. The local people say, well, yeah, that's always like that. What's so special about it? So this is the other point which people are underestimating, and that is based on the old-fashioned idea that tourism is about hanging out on the beach. But this is by now only a small part. And if people say, okay, I want to learn something new, I want to meet new people, I want to try out new things, I want to learn cooking or dancing or music in another place, uh, you can't do this at home. So at home, it looks at home. So for recreation, for spending uh, a weekend relaxing, yes, also from an ecological point of view, it makes sense. You're not flying in an aircraft polluting for just staying 2 nights on a beach. You can do this also in your region, maybe. But for meeting new people, learning new things, getting new ideas, well, yes, you have to go to
An
places
extra
which are
mile.
different
So I'm
from your own.
really, I'm excited. I'm excited about, and I thank you for opening our eyes towards this important segment. But
Welcome.
now, tell us when and how some of these tourism boards can book. What do they have to do?
Well, they can contact you or they can contact us. So we have a website which is called china-outbound.com,
Yes.
and just have a look and drop us a line, and we will be in touch.
And we, from World Tourism Forums Institute's point of view, we are launching all of this, the entire training program and everything. It will be launched on our website under our business school segment. And I think watch the space in the next couple of weeks. This program is out, and I think it's going to really, really serve the industry, because bear in mind that being part of such an industry, you are directly contributing to the revitalization and preservation of local traditions, customs, culture, and life, handicrafts, arts, culture, artists, identity, and heritage, renewal of all local architectural traditions. So I believe not all heroes wear capes, they say. Sometimes they simply belong to an industry that induces change, drives economies, or preserves history and culture. And that's what travel and tourism industry is all about. I really hope that we are able to contribute to this industry through this segment. I'm looking forward to it, and I know that Professor, you are really looking forward to meeting some of these people who are interested. And from your experience, given all of that, I'm not, that you've just talked about, we simply cannot sit back. and ignore this juggernaut of of market, which is just waking up after the post-COVID era. And I think it's something to welcome for us to embrace fully, and it will fill the gap, and perhaps bring in that economic revival that so many destinations at this moment are seeking. Thank you so much.
Thank you very much.